Chanel catches Alex confronting Johnny about Joy, who accepts EJ's check to leave town. Chad and Kat arrive to a dreary motel room in Vancouver. Chad hopes Clyde believes they are the same Chad and Mrs. DiMera that checked in across the street. Kat is astonished to learn that they are sharing a room. "I don't trust you," Chad snaps. "I'm not letting you out of my sight." Mr. and Mrs. DiMera, portrayed by a gorgeous Gabby and a casual JJ, enter an exclusive hotel. Before he leaves, the bellhop hands Mr. DiMera a letter that someone left for him. JJ checks for listening devices while Gabby reads that Clyde will deliver instructions in the morning. At home, Paulina, Lonnie, and Chanel sit around the living room table, cucumbers covering their eyes and manicure tools between them. Lonnie wishes she and Eli could have gone on a double date with Chanel and Johnny before leaving tomorrow, but it will have to wait until next time. Paulina believes that's for the best. "Tell your sister what a jackass your husband has been," Paulina instructs her youngest. Chanel reluctantly tells Lonnie that Johnny unjustly accused her of cheating. Lonnie reveals she once done the same thing with JJ. Lonnie, Chanel, and Paulina lean back their heads, cucumber slices covering their eyes. They sat around a table, holding nail polish bottles. In the DiMera mansion, EJ discovers Johnny working late on a scene with Chanel and Joy. EJ warns him not to work too hard because he convinced Joy to leave Salem. Johnny won't have to feel guilty every time she's around. Johnny yells at his father to undo it, but EJ insists it's the best option. Joy arrives to Alex's apartment to inform him that she is leaving the show and returning to New York. Alex, realizing this is about Johnny, pushes her to rethink. If for no other reason, Abe and Kate will sue her for breaching her contract. She informs him that EJ is taking care of it for her. Alex cautions that her beloved career will soon come to an end. Joy claims the sale is finalized. She'll be seeing EJ in 20 minutes to pick up her check, and she needs Alex to remain out of it. In the motel, Kat becomes irritated with Chad for being more concerned about his deceased wife's remains than with her potentially surviving mother. He tells her never to talk about his wife like that again. She is still furious about having to do what he says. "I don't have my own life anymore." He agrees she is correct, but he lacks the energy to explore it further. He phones Jennifer as Kat prepares to take a shower. In a motel, Chad confronts Kat. At the motel, JJ reluctantly answers a phone call from Jack after ignoring Jennifer's previous 6 calls. After hanging up, he informs Gabby that Doug has died. Gabby is stunned by his and Julie's devotion. An emotional JJ recalls Doug gently dissuading him from proposing to Lonnie, knowing it was a mistake. Now she's married to his grandson, so everything worked out. He'll definitely miss him. Gabby embraces him. Lonnie tells her sister and mother that she slept with Eli when she thought JJ slept with Gabby. That night transformed her life because she became pregnant with David Abraham, whom she thinks about every day. Chanel, who was unable to forgive Ali for cheating, is relieved Johnny did not turn to someone else. No matter how much she adores him, she does not believe she could live with it. Lonnie knows Chanel's marriage is strong and will only grow stronger with time. At the DiMera estate, EJ persuades his son that sending Joy away is the best way to save his marriage. Johnny says there is one more loose end, Alex knows. EJ is concerned that Alex will utilize this information to maintain an advantage over him. Johnny doesn't believe he would do that. Chad speaks somberly on the phone in a motel room. Wearing a robe, Kat looks at him with anxiety. Kat exits the motel restroom in a robe as Chad hangs up the phone. He informs her that Doug has passed away and recalls how wonderful he was with the children. Kat is deeply sorry for his loss and offers to assist if there is anything she can do. He cuts her off and contacts JJ. He's sorry they didn't attend Doug's funeral. JJ is, too, but he knows Doug would prefer they do this for Abigail. He says Clyde will contact him in the morning. Later, Kat obtains vending machine goodies and sleeps on the floor with a pillow. Chad coldly instructs her to take the bed because he will be awake all night regardless. In their hotel room, JJ tells Gabby to take the bed, but Gabby insists that there is enough of room for both of them. They uncomfortably go under the covers and turn off the lights. JJ looks at Gabby as she curls up with her back to him. Lonnie, crouching at David's tombstone, lovingly glances up. Lonnie and Chanel say their goodbyes before accompanying Paulina to the cemetery. Lonnie notices flowers already on David Abraham's headstone. Paulina admits that she placed them there since she visits every couple weeks. Lonnie kneels, telling her kid how much she misses and loves him. EJ hands Joy a check outside the pub and instructs her to grab her belongings and leave. Alex visits the DiMera estate to confront Johnny about Joy. Johnny tells him it's none of his concern. So, why don't you butt out before you mess everything up? Chanel emerges. What the hell is going on in here? Days of Our Lives, Chanel catches Alex confronting Johnny about Joy, who accepts EJ's check to leave town. The mid-morning sunlight spilled across Horton Town Square, its bright cheer juxtaposing the simmering tension among Salem's residents. As viewers tuned in, the episode kicked off with a tight shot of Chanel Dupree, portrayed by Raven Bowens, who seemed preoccupied, sipping her coffee outside Sweet Bits Bakery. Chanel's life was rarely without drama, but recent developments concerning Alex Kyriakis, Robert Scott Wilson, Johnny DiMera, Carson Boatman, and a mysterious newcomer named Joy had left her head spinning. Chanel's suspicion grows. Chanel had always been intuitive, but something about Alex's behavior lately didn't sit right with her. He had become increasingly agitated whenever Johnny's name came up, and their recent interactions seemed unusually fraught with tension. Meanwhile, Johnny had been avoiding eye contact and rushing off every time Joy's name was mentioned. Joy, a stunning newcomer played by an actress whose identity was still a mystery to fans, had quickly made waves in Salem since her arrival. Her connection to the DiMera family, though unclear, had everyone speculating. Chanel, determined to get to the bottom of things, decided to follow her instincts. She couldn't shake the feeling that Alex's fiery temperament and Johnny's evasiveness were tied to something, or someone, bigger than either was willing to admit. What she discovered would turn her world upside down. Alex confronts Johnny. The next scene transitioned to the Kyriakis mansion, where Alex stormed into the living room, his jaw tight and his fists clenched. Johnny was already there, leaning against the mantel with a devil-may-care attitude that only served to irritate Alex further. "Cut the crap, Johnny," Alex barked, his voice echoing in the spacious room. "I know you've been sneaking around with Joy." Johnny smirked, though his posture betrayed a flicker of unease. "And what if I have? Last I checked, you don't own her." Alex's eyes narrowed. "You don't know what you're dealing with. Joy isn't who she says she is, and you're too blinded by your ego to see it." The tension between the two men was palpable. Alex's protective streak often bordered on overbearing, but this time, his words carried an urgency that couldn't be ignored. Johnny, however, was nothing if not stubborn. He stepped closer to Alex, his smirk vanishing. "You don't get to dictate my life," Johnny shot back. "And you sure as hell don't get to decide who I spend my time with." Unbeknownst to the feuding men, Chanel had entered the room. She froze, her heart pounding as she realized she was eavesdropping on a conversation that wasn't meant for her ears. But what she heard next changed everything. Chanel's revelation. From her vantage point near the door, Chanel heard Alex's voice drop to a low growl. "Joy's playing you, Johnny. She's got her eyes on more than just your heart. If you don't wake up, you'll lose everything." Johnny scoffed, but Chanel could see the flicker of doubt in his eyes. She decided to make her presence known. Lose everything? Chanel asked, stepping into the room. What exactly are we talking about here? Both men turned to face her, their expressions a mixture of surprise and guilt. Alex looked like he wanted to explain, while Johnny seemed ready to bolt. Chanel crossed her arms, her gaze shifting between the two. Well, she pressed. Are either of you going to tell me what's going on? Johnny sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's nothing, Chanel. Just family drama. Family drama? She repeated, raising an eyebrow. Since when does family drama involve Joy? Joy's hidden agenda. Meanwhile, across town, Joy sat in the opulent DiMera mansion, holding a check with E.J. DiMera's, Dan Furigal, signature scrawled across it. The amount was enough to make anyone think twice about their morals. E.J. had made it clear, he wanted Joy out of Salem and out of Johnny's life. You're playing a dangerous game, Joy, E.J. had warned her earlier. Take the money and leave before things get messy. Joy had smiled, her eyes glittering with mischief. Messy? That's where I thrive. But as she stared at the check, a flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. She had her reasons for coming to Salem, reasons that went beyond Johnny and the DiMeras. Would accepting E.J.'s offer mean abandoning her true goals? Or was this her chance to escape the web of lies she'd spun? Confrontation at Sweet Bits. Back at Sweet Bits, Chanel, Alex, and Johnny had taken their argument outside. Customers and passers-by pretended not to listen, but the trio's raised voices made it impossible to ignore. Chanel deserves to know the truth, Alex said, turning to Johnny. Tell her, or I will. Johnny's jaw tightened. You don't get to decide that. Chanel, frustrated by their cryptic exchange, threw up her hands. Enough. If neither of you can be honest, I'll go straight to Joy myself. The mention of Joy's name seemed to break the stalemate. Johnny exhaled sharply. Fine. You want the truth? Joy isn't who you think she is. She's been lying to all of us. Lying about what? Chanel demanded. Alex and Johnny exchanged a look, their shared silence speaking volumes. Before either could answer, Joy appeared, her arrival as dramatic as ever. Lying? She asked, her tone laced with faux innocence. Now, why would I do something like that? Days of our lives, secrets, sacrifices, and scandals. The intricate web of drama in Salem reached a fever pitch this week, with betrayals and confessions threatening to upend relationships and alliances across town. From Chad and Kat's tense mission in Vancouver to Johnny and Chanel's shaky marriage back in Salem, the stakes have never been higher. In this week's episodes, viewers were treated to a blend of heartbreak, scheming, and tantalizing twists. Chanel catches Alex and Johnny confronting each other. At the DiMera mansion, Johnny worked late into the night, poring over a scene that pit Chanel against the enigmatic Joy. His brow furrowed as he tried to refine the dialogue, but the tension between fiction and reality weighed heavily on him. Joy wasn't just a character in his script, she was a looming presence in his life, one that Chanel hadn't yet fully uncovered. E.J. entered the room, his typical composed demeanor masking his ruthlessness. You should rest, son, E.J. said smoothly. There's no point burning the midnight oil, especially now that Joy is leaving town. Johnny's pen stopped mid-stroke. What? He asked, his voice rising. I convinced her to take my offer, E.J. replied, handing Johnny a copy of the check. It's for the best. She'll no longer be a distraction to your marriage. Johnny sprang to his feet, his face red with anger. You had no right. This isn't your decision to make. It's precisely my decision, E.J. countered, his voice cold. As your father, I'm protecting your future. Chanel deserves your full attention, not whatever emotional mess Joy stirs up. Furious, Johnny stormed out, leaving EJ to revel in his control. But as Johnny descended the staircase, he ran straight into Alex, whose simmering frustration mirrored Johnny's own. Care to explain why Joy's leaving town? Alex demanded, his tone sharp. Johnny bristled. You're the last person who should be asking questions. This doesn't concern you. Alex stepped closer, his voice low but menacing. It concerns everyone when people start playing games with lives and careers. Joy's being manipulated, and we both know who's behind it. Unbeknownst to them, Chanel had been approaching the room and overheard their heated exchange. She burst in, her voice cutting through the tension. What the hell is going on in here? Both men turned, their arguments temporarily halted by her presence. Johnny's guilt was written all over his face, while Alex's expression was one of grim determination. Chanel crossed her arms, her gaze shifting between them. Somebody better start talking. Chad and Kat's tense mission in Vancouver. In a dimly lit motel room in Vancouver, Chad stared out the window, his body tense with a mixture of grief and resolve. Across the room, Kat leaned against the dresser, glaring at him. You didn't tell me we'd be sharing a room, she said, her voice tinged with annoyance. Chad didn't bother looking at her. I don't trust you, he replied curtly. I'm not letting you out of my sight. Kat scoffed. You act like I'm the one who killed Abigail. His jaw tightened, and he finally turned to face her. Don't talk about her like that. Ever. The room fell silent, the air between them thick with unresolved tension. Kat finally broke it with a bitter laugh. I don't have my own life anymore. I'm just a pawn in your game. Chad sighed, his anger giving way to weariness. You're right, he admitted. But right now, I don't have the energy to argue. Kat shook her head and grabbed a towel, retreating to the bathroom. As the shower turned on, Chad pulled out his phone and dialed Jennifer. The grief in his voice was palpable as he whispered, Doug's gone. I should have been there. Gabby and JJ go undercover. In a stark contrast to Chad and Kat's shabby motel, Gabby and JJ entered an upscale hotel in Vancouver, posing as Mr. and Mrs. DiMera. Gabby's glamorous dress and JJ's casual demeanor made for an odd pairing, but they played their roles convincingly. At the front desk, the bellhop handed JJ a sealed envelope. This was left for you, sir, he said with a polite nod. Once inside their room, JJ searched for listening devices while Gabby read the letter aloud. Clyde will send instructions in the morning, she recited, her voice laced with unease. JJ sighed. This guy's playing us like a fiddle. As they prepared for the night, the tension between them softened. When JJ learned of Doug's death during a call with Jack, he was visibly shaken. He was one of the kindest men I've ever known, JJ said, his voice breaking. Gabby placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. He was lucky to have you in his life. JJ looked at her with gratitude. Thanks, Gabby. It means a lot. Paulina, Lonnie, and Chanel bond. Back in Salem, Paulina, Lonnie, and Chanel indulged in a much-needed girls' night. With cucumbers over their eyes and nail polish scattered on the table, they laughed and reminisced about lighter times. But the conversation soon turned serious when Paulina urged Chanel to confide in her sister about Johnny's recent behavior. He accused me of cheating, Chanel admitted reluctantly. Lonnie frowned. I've been there. I accused JJ once, and it nearly ruined everything. Chanel sighed. I love Johnny, but I don't know if I could forgive him if he turned to someone else. Lonnie placed a reassuring hand on Chanel's. Your marriage is strong. It'll survive this. Joy's decision. Outside Brady's pub, Joy met EJ, her face unreadable as he handed her a check. "This is it," EJ said. "Take the money and leave." Joy hesitated for the briefest of moments before slipping the check into her bag. "Don't worry, Mr. DiMera," she said with a sly smile. "I'll be gone before sunrise." But as she walked away, her mind raced. Was leaving Salem really the right choice? Or was she running from something she wasn't ready to face? The night ends with uncertainty. In Vancouver, Kat emerged from the bathroom, her robe clinging to her damp skin. She glanced at Chad, who was still on the phone, his expression somber. "I'm sorry about Doug," she said softly. Chad nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. "Thanks." In Salem, Johnny stared at Chanel as she demanded answers about his confrontation with Alex. "You owe me the truth," she said, her voice trembling. Johnny hesitated, knowing that one wrong word could destroy everything. The screen faded to black, leaving viewers on the edge of their seats.